we're going to talk about designing a video game character. I got my bachelor's in computer animation many moons ago, and I think my favorite part was always the concept art and the character development phase. So this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So let's talk about what you need to do in order to create a successful character. The first thing that you want to take into consideration is the backstory. You need a solid backstory for your character. A good game character has a personality, even if it's an unlikable personality. You know, I can think of plenty of video game characters that I've played that were kind of jerks in a sense, but their backstory needs to have enough detail that as a player you get to figure out a sense of who they are and what they want. What are they after? What is their purpose or their role in the game aside from the main character? Why are they important? Even mysterious protagonists that are maybe kind of secretive, you know, you want to give the player just enough information to get them curious to continue playing the game. So in a professional sense, game writers and designers and character artists would all work together in order to develop a fun and believable character. A good game character embodies a few different elements in order to help make them complex, and a solid backstory is one of them. For the character being previewed, if you're not familiar with the God of War franchise, when the character dev team was coming up with this character, artists wanted to emphasize his aggressive nature. He is a brutal mofo, right? So he's one of those characters that has a stronger instinct to smash something and then ask questions later. That's the kind of guy that Kratos is. And so the artists wanted to immediately feel the energy looking at this character. They wanted him to radiate that power. Kratos actually translates to power from Greek. Coincidentally, the first 3 or so games, maybe there's more, the games are based solidly on Greek mythology. And coincidentally, there's a real god called Kratos from Greek mythology. So it's actually referencing real material. They didn't initially plan his name, but as they researched content, they realized, wow, there's a person in mythology that pretty much aligns exactly with the kind of character that we want to make. And so they switched his name because both characters possessed a brutal and bloodthirsty nature. You want your character to have a strong motivation for whatever it is they're looking to achieve. A good character is someone with plausible motivations and a unique look that expresses the way that they are. You want to define their history and their relationship to the game's quest, which can help flesh out future motivations and help you understand why they do what they do during the game. We've got pictured Master Chief from Halo. Halo is an American military science fiction game, and the central focus is building off of the experiences of Master Chief John 117. He was one of a group of super soldiers codenamed Spartans, and the main story revolves around him and Cortana, who is his AI companion. Just for some backstory on him, he was abducted from his parents by the government at a young age and then conditioned to become a super soldier. And so while he was not the best at any specific task, he was a really great leader. He was an excellent leader among his peers. And with a little extra luck, he ends up becoming the hero that saves humanity. So knowing the backstory, again, allows for some of his choices later on in the game to make more sense. You also want your character, whoever or whatever they are, to invoke empathy for the viewer. So you want your character to resonate with that player. You want to have an emotional response to what it is that they're doing and be someone that the player can root for, see themselves in. You want to relate to them, because otherwise they might seem boring or shallow or cliche, and that can result in a negative gaming experience, which, you know, game companies want you to continue to pick up that controller and play as time goes on. So this is, again, one of those things. I see a couple hands popping up. I don't know if anybody wants to ask a question before I move forward.
And you can definitely unmute yourself or turn on your camera if you wish to ask a question.
May I ask a question?
Go for it, Michael.
Okay, so about a character having to evoke empathy, I thought of an outlier. So is it possible for you not to feel empathy for a character and still enjoy the character?
Oh, sure. I mean, if we go back to Kratos from the God of War, in the first few games, it was literally about murder. like he is a demigod. He is out to just wreck the lives of all of the other Greek gods. And literally all he's doing is running through the game, just smashing the crap out of everything. And I really, really hated one of the ways that you would like give yourself life. Like if you got, you know, hit in combat and you needed to restore life, you know, a lot of games are like, oh, here's a health pack. One of the ways that in the very first one, game developers chose to heal Kratos is there were concubines, and he would show them a good time, and that was how you restored life. And as a feminist, I was horrified. Like, wow, that's terrible. But I loved the aspects of the game visually. As someone who loves games, I really loved the visuals elsewhere in the game. So I got through the game in order to sort of set aside that I did not like him as a person. He was an asshole. Like, I did not care for him as a character. But I will say that the most recent game, which is he's essentially gone, I don't know, spoiler alerts, I apologize, but he's essentially gone into hiding from the Greeks, and now it's centered on Norse mythology, and he has a child, and his wife passed away, so now he's an only parent, and he's trying to show his son the way of the world, and that violence is not the only answer. But you can still see that he struggles with the fury, yet he's compassionate. And I think that he's really redeemed himself as a character. And so to answer your question, no, you don't have to like the character. He can be the antithesis of what you would want to see, but you need to put something in there that continues to give gameplay value to the player. Otherwise, you're a one and done, you know? And a lot of games aren't remembered the way that other games are that have that repeat playability. Does that answer your question?
Because the character I was thinking about was Doom Guy of the Doom series. You don't even know his name. You know nothing about him.
That's another great example where you're literally just going through to just wreck everybody's day. Like, you see yourself in the little heal screen, and that is the extent of your relationship with the character. That not the most. We're definitely thinking about more recent gameplay, I suppose. But Doom, you know, we can even think you can empathize with Mario more so than you can empathize with the Doom guy.
Also known as the Doom Slayer.
The Doom Slayer, yes. I didn't even know he had a name, but I remember playing that on my PC in middle school and scaring the crap out of my parents in the middle of the night because I shrieked at something jumping out at me. So good times. All right, so I'm gonna leave it off on empathy. We're gonna continue. So how to design a character. Obviously, characters can make or break a gaming experience. There are plenty of terrible character designs that exist. Typically, we don't remember them because once they're done, nobody messes with it. But with that in mind, we're going to talk about a few elements that contribute to a great video game character design. So the first thing that you want to pay attention to is you want to get an idea of your character. Figure out the kind of character that the story needs. You want to start really broad. You don't want to nail down really minute details about what they look like or what they eat for breakfast. Like, small details are not important. You want to just think very broadly in this stage. So think about their personality. Are they a benevolent pacifist? Are they a gruff anti-hero? Are they a trickster? Are they insincere? What character aspects could relate back into their visual? And then based off of those aspects that you can think of, you want to develop a sketch or a game plan on what they might look like. Now, you can use inspiration from other game artists and iconic original characters to help you generate fresh ideas. You know, we were just talking about the early iteration of Kratos from God of War and how he was a womanizing jerk and a bloodthirsty, you know, murderous monster, essentially. You know, maybe if you know that you want your character to have that sort of persona, you can start with Kratos as a base, but figure out how can I make it different and unique and still convey those ideas without looking derivative of something that's been done already. So you can use ideas from other sources in that regard, but consider turning tropes on their head. Maybe it's a woman that's really angry and bloodthirsty, perhaps. We don't see that very often. And after you get a general idea, you can start to refine the details from there. Next, you want to establish a backstory. A strong backstory is pertinent to building a good character. Now, some of the backstory of whatever your character is always going to be revealed in the beginning of the game, and then typically little tidbits here and there are released as the game progresses in order to continue to build to the concept of the character that you have. So again, I want to reiterate, it is not important to have a fleshed out backstory that goes over every detail of their prior life prior to the game starting. Define their history and also their relationship to other characters in their world, and that can help the player better understand that character. So are they reluctantly thrust into action? They don't want to fight, but they have to. Or are they driven by their family's insistence that they're never going to be a hero and they want to prove them wrong? You want to give yourself an idea of who the character is at the beginning that can help inform the character's potential arc and how they will grow and develop and where they will end up at the end. Speaking of story arc, after you've figured out where your character begins and where they will end, you can start to establish how they might change along the way. Now, I understand Walter White is not a video game character, but if you've ever watched the Breaking Bad series, you know that he's an incredibly complex person. And so I liked this diagram just because it shows where Walter White starts as sort of a meek and mild-mannered chemistry teacher in high school to being a ruthless drug lord, essentially. But you want to create an emotional and physical journey for your players to undertake, and note that these elements affect both the protagonist as well as the characters around them within the game. How your character reacts to problems or conflict can help define who they are for the player, which leads to more understanding and empathy of their behavior throughout the game. So you're not left wondering, well, why did they do that? I have, you know, no understanding. You're giving context for later actions that might pop up. You want to add character traits. Much like film, television, literature, character traits are important for character creation. So think about what kind of quirks your character might have, what sort of mannerisms they may have, anything that makes them tick. I love the endearingly horrible protagonist of the goose in what is called the Untitled Goose Game. Basically, you play a goose and you are purely here to wreck everybody's day. Geese are not the most they're temperamental birds. If you've ever met a goose, you know what I'm talking about. So everything from here, he's digging up this guy's flowers. You might bite someone, you might trip someone and make them fall into a puddle, or even grab someone's beer and throw it in the river. Like that is your role as this goose. And so his character traits are mischievous and kind of jerkish, but yet everybody enjoys playing the jerk goose for some reason. This game has done very well. So again, think about your character. Are they dangerously impulsive? Do they have a problem speaking up? Are they lone wolves, or do they desperately want to be a part of a team? These sort of traits can help make sense of the personality that you're building and help your characters feel like real people, even if they're not actually designed like a human being. Case in point, the jerk goose. But this can help bring them to life for the player and produce a stronger player and character dynamic, which it subsequently results in a better gaming experience. You want to define the relationships of your characters. And this is more just than we want to pay attention to more than just their look and their sound and their voice. How do they react with other people or other characters within the game? Because this can affect how the player perceives them. So do they regularly defy orders? Are they the teacher's pet? Are they abrasive to the NPCs in the game, the non-player characters? Or are they friendly with everyone? Do they talk too much, or are they antisocial? All of these sorts of relationships can help flesh out who your character is and how they operate in their world, which allows the player to get a better understanding of behavior and action. So this is all building up to where it will make sense when the character does something. You're not left wondering, well, why? How does this relate to the plot? I hate movies like that where you don't find out the plot point, Games are very much similar. So you want to provide an aesthetic that fits. Many video games come with pre-established character designs, some of which have become iconic over the years. Mario from the 80s, or even previously, if we go back to Donkey Kong, to the contemporary what Mario looks like now, it's a very strong franchise. They have a very distinct, iconic aesthetic, and it's recognizable to people even if they don't play games. So that's a great example of an established character design. But there are lots of games now that allow you to customize the aesthetic of your character. There are lots of RPGs that leave the aesthetic up to the player, allowing them to customize their characters with an array of different features. So everything from their armor to the size of their nose to the sounds that they make while they fight. So whether you pre-establish the design, such as in a Mario example, or you want to leave the design of the character up to the player, it still needs to match the world that you've created. So the overall aesthetic contributes to the overall essence of the character and can help immerse the player deeper into the game narrative. So that being said, there are sometimes crossover games that take place, but you wouldn't take a character from Animal Crossing and put them exactly how they are in Animal Crossing into Destiny and expect it to look right. It would need to be finessed to match the world that it's in, even if it is, someone's tipping their hat to another game design. So let's talk about making the art itself now. So many character designers, more often than not, will start with a sketch as opposed to like a 3D model. You do not want to overdo it in this early stage. This is where you're capturing the essence of who your character is. So when you're working up a design, you want to make sure that you don't lose that magic, that essence of that character. Don't get caught up in the details. Decide what you're trying to communicate, and then you're going to create a loose sketch with movement, acting, and flow that communicates what it is that they're trying to achieve. So movement is all but impossible to add later. So you want to make sure that that dynamic is still present in the initial sketch, because as soon as you start to tighten up the drawing, you're going to lose some of that motion. Research your characters, or sorry, research other characters. So it can be helpful to look up what has been done already and try to deconstruct why certain character designs are successful, why they work, and others are less so. There's no shortage of research material that you can find out there. Like, think about cartoons or TV commercials or cereal boxes or signs in front of buildings. Like, there are characters all over the place. Why do some work and some don't? Study them, figure out what it is you like or what makes them successful to you, and then sometimes you can implement those ideas into your own character designs. But also keep in mind that you want to look outside of cartoon characters. You can people watch. Sometimes you can just, like, I have in the past gone to the mall and just people watched, and everyone walks different. They have different mannerisms. They might interact with peers in a different way. And I have sketched from life people just going about their everyday business and gotten character ideas in that way. I also like birds, because especially when they're doing things like doing mating dances, they do some weird stuff. And those really odd movements, insects too, can spark really interesting character behavior ideas. So, think about, like, when I personally begin a project, I start with what sort of feeling I want to evoke, and then I'll kind of work from there. I'll do research. I might take a video of myself making faces or emoting a particular emotion and trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to this drawing in order to help achieve this look? But inspirations can include anything. It doesn't even have to be limited to living beings. You might get inspiration from color palettes or a plant or, nature, fashion. All of it's up for grabs. I spend an obscene amount of time on Pinterest pinning things that just look neat that I reference later all the time. Don't be afraid to exaggerate characteristics. This is the defining, you're basically exaggerating a defining feature of your character, because that can help them appear larger than life. Not physically larger than life, though in this example, the monster in the back is humongous. But exaggerated features help viewers to identify key qualities of a character. So it's done in cartoons all the time. So it can help to emphasize certain personality traits. So if your character is, say, strong, and you want to give them that concept of strength, don't just give it normal bulging sized arms. Like, soup them up. Monster trucks that have the wheels that are bigger than the cab, like, do that and see if you're able to amplify the appearance of strength without the character having to do anything. Make it 5 times bigger than it actually needs to be. And that alone can sometimes help to trigger how you want the player to view the qualities of that character. You also want to be conscious of your target audience. Not every game is appropriate for children, for instance, and just based off of the look, usually you can determine that. But think about who's going to be playing your game. Who are these characters supposed to resonate with? Character designs that are aimed at young kids are typically super basic shapes and really bright colors, because kids like that. They enjoy that. So this is kind of catered along to if you're working with someone else, like if you're working in a professional sense and dealing with character design. Commissioned character designs are usually more restrictive because they know they want certain things, but that doesn't mean it's less creative. you know, they might have specific needs, but they usually let the artists do their thing. And as long as you're capturing those core features that they need you to, there's usually a lot of flexibility when it comes to the look. Make your character distinctive. Whether you're creating something simple like a monkey or a robot or a monster, you want to make sure that yours stands out. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of monkey characters in games. Everybody knows Donkey Kong, but think about, you know, that's usually the first one that people think of. And I think there are a few, I think there's a, I'm not remembering the game right now. I know that there's at least one gorilla floating around in a more recent game than Donkey Kong, but you want to make sure that your design is strong and interesting enough in a visual sense to grab people's attention. I loved the D'Vorah character in Mortal Kombat 10 just because she was something completely different. She moved different from all of the other characters. You know, I was overseeing seeing Sub-Zero. I was really excited to see something new and different. And she so far stands out as my favorite character, even if she's not the strongest player out of the bunch. This is done in cartoons as well. When devising The Simpsons, the creator of The Simpsons knew that he had to offer the viewers something different. And so he thought, well, if I give them something unusual to look at as they're flipping through the channels, maybe they'll stop and watch my show. And so their unusually bright yellow skin color was done purely as a ploy to grab attention, to make someone stop channel surfing and focus, at least for a little bit, on The Simpsons. And as we know, they've been around for 30 plus years now, so they're not doing too bad. I think he had a good idea there. For your character, you want to create a clear silhouette that can help you improve its pose and help make it distinct. So this is essentially you being able to see how your character reads, even if they're viewed really small, by reducing them into a silhouette with few, if any, details. So this makes essentially the gesture, the general idea of the character more clear. So do you understand the character's emotion or their line of action based off of their pose? Can they be simplified? You don't want to overlap parts too much because it starts to kind of muddy up the idea. You'll notice that certain forms are more successful and more dynamic when you can at least see 3 of the 4 limbs versus when they kind of merge together into a blob like some of these characters. You also want to develop a line of action. So something important when you're dealing with character design is what their motion or their action looks like. So this is essentially, this can define the direction of your character and help act as a useful narrative tool and bring a feeling of motion. So these are some of the very first sketches that the lead concept artist for the first God of War did. He did these on a napkin in a Starbucks, for context. So you'll notice there's a lot of like crescent shapes. Like here you could see he's hunched over. Here you've got the chains attached to his blades kind of arcing across. So you've got all of these dynamic crescent shapes. Even the blades themselves are crescent. But what really grabbed my attention when I saw this was this particular, like almost completely circular form as the blades of chaos are attached and he's, you know, basically getting ready to just wreck somebody's day. And that was translated so well into gameplay for all of their games. Like, again, I want to reiterate, I was not a fan of him as a character in the first few games because of, you know, we talked about that already, but the gameplay was visually stunning, like absolutely beautiful to watch the sense of motion taking place. And I immediately saw this and could relate it back to the gameplay. So bringing in that line of action all the way to the extremities, like toes, fingertips, all the way out to really over exaggerate the sense of motion. If you've ever seen a ballet dancer, those are great examples because they emphasize the line from the tips of their toes to the tips of their fingers. If you think about like mermaids are like, you think about that body, or even snakes, they have one long curved line. And so those really add to motion. So like go back and watch The Little Mermaid, for example, and you'll see a lot of that curvature taking place. Line of action is very clear. You want to make your game personal. Now, this isn't always for every game, but it can help. The game Sea of Solitude is newish, but it's an exploration of experiences of loneliness. And you're basically going through the world, viewing through the eyes of the main character, who is dealing with mental illness and depression. And that's a topic that I can't think of many people that are not at least somewhat familiar with someone who's experienced things like that. And so it's such a universal thing that people can relate to. It is like the main driving point is this person dealing with their mental illness, and you're working through it with them as a part of gameplay, which is really interesting. And so it hits sort of a personal note in a way that not a lot of other games do. I guess it's niche in a sense in that regard, but very, very highly rated, like acclaimed for its visuals. And finally, keep it simple. It's important to know when to exaggerate, but also when to keep things simple. So sometimes reducing your character to just the most finite information is enough. Now, obviously, different strokes for different blokes, I suppose. Different games have different objectives in that regard. Obviously, you're not going to see a really simple character in a game like Final Fantasy. But for at least the character creation phase, it can be incredibly helpful to start simple and then work into a more complex character, but it's dependent upon the game entirely. Okay, I got to the end. Let's do some questions. I'm going to open up Photoshop so that we can do a little bit of interactive drawing and create our own character as a group. I see the chat blinking.
Yeah, Andrew had an important question. Whenever you cut out, you were saying that something was taboo.
Oh, just talking about depression and mental illness. I mean, it's better now, but it's still something that a lot of people just do not discuss. And so for a lot of people, if they're not maybe comfortable discussing it, but they can experience that in a game and realize they're not the only person experiencing these sort of things, it can kind of lessen that burden, I guess.
It can actually help people who are neurotypical or maybe don't deal with depression to really experience what that feels like. Because I think a lot of times it's like, oh, I'm depressed. It's like, okay, what does that mean?
Different depending on who you ask. It is never the same beast. All right, let me switch to what I'm sharing. We's gonna do a drawing. Now I will say I did see the chat box before my computer decided to bork on me. I saw the chat blowing up and I don't know what was said, so it's gone now. It's only showing what's present since I logged back in. So So I'm,
Well,
I'm using
they were
a
just talking
tablet.
about designs, like so many great designs are linked back to drawings on napkins, and how that shows that if you take a break and clear your head, it can kind of be easier to design things.
One thing that I will say, like, if you're interested in character design, like as a career choice, I cannot, like, it's important to know how to do the computer stuff, but you have to know how to be able to draw on paper, like the old school way, because you might be technically skilled in all the things, but if you cannot like impromptu grab a paper and a pen and figure out what your idea is without electricity, you know, like think about just last couple weeks when we had our snowstorm. Like if you were working and could not convey your idea without the digital tools, it almost puts you at a disadvantage in a sense. So basics is super important, and I cannot stress that enough. All right, because the artboard is selected. All right, so what sort of character, I've got the chat open. What kind of character are we wanting to build, guys? Guys and gals, party people. Let's see. Any takers? Should I just free form? An
Part of me is
animalistic
screaming
character.
monkey, but
Screaming monkey.
no. I spoke over somebody. Somebody else said something.
Well, I see animalistic character, grumpy jerky character. So maybe a grumpy jerky monkey.
And remember, you can unmute yourself and even turn on your camera if you want to respond.
Yes, grumpy jerky monkey. Okay, so let's take a minute. So I'm gonna think real broad here. This is like kind of my sketch. So I'm thinking a monkey that would rather be hanging out and eating bananas than doing anything else. Maybe he's mad that the younger monkeys gave him crap and didn't bring him a monkey. Maybe he's got little monkey arms. Now,
I love
again, real loose.
I like
I'm
it.
I'm looking, let me make my cursor bigger. What I'm wanting to do to start is this is just my general idea. Okay. So I'll start with that silhouette concept. I want a real general idea. Let me adjust my settings. So I'm wanting just bare bones general idea on what kind of shape that we might be working with, because I can always go tighten it up after the fact. Koalas are jerks. Like, you see all the cute pictures, like when they had all the fires, like people saving koalas, and the koalas are all like sweet. Koalas will wreck your day. They are awful.
I met a zookeeper in Australia when I went down there for a conference, and he was talking about how they don't care. Like,
oh no,
you can bottle feed them from a baby. Mm-mm. They do not care.
They are complete butts,
and they poop a lot. And Michael said, "Ever hear of the drop bear? Isn't that the koala, Michael? Isn't that the koala?"
I'm pretty sure that is the koala. The drop
It's
bear.
like a koala, but more violent.
Oh, okay. Is that like a cryptid story?
Kill a person.
Okay, that's terrifying.
All right.
I went to Australia and I came right back.
Claws and teeth.
I'm not about that.
So here we got sort of lazy, relaxed monkey. Let's see. We'll say he's like a grumpy old man, like, get off my lawn.
But that is a case in point. Like, you are proving your point that you need to be able to do paper first and not just digital, because as we've seen, digital can fail us every time.
I'll be techie and pull Photoshop up. Nope. No.
We were talking about the drop bear while you were gone.
Oh, that's okay. The drop bears are a thing.
They are
were there any
Questions.
like character design related questions that I can answer.
And remember, you can unmute yourself and turn on your camera if you wish, or you can put it in the chat. Andrew says, jerk monkeys messing with your internet. It's
Andrew,
sharks.
I feel that so hard.
It's sharks on the bottom of the ocean. They're gnawing at the internet cables.
Oh. I see
Hi,
your hand,
Michael. Yeah,
Michael.
go
You
ahead
wanna
and unmute
unmute?
yourself.
Well, this isn't so much of a question. Well, it is technically a question. See, once I tried to make this video game, like it was a Frankenstein style puzzle game where you have to assemble Frankenstein, but every time I tried to code it, it would make it to where the forearm would go all the way up into the shoulder.
Oh, like the arm
Yeah. it
inside
wouldn't
the
go-
body.
Yeah, it wouldn't, no matter how I coded it, it wouldn't go right.
Okay. That's, I mean, I am not a coder. When I went to school, I did it through the college that I went to had 2 tracks that you could handle animation. One was from like the art side and one was from like the digital media tech side.
Okay.
I am not a techie. So like if I were working in a 3D modeling program, I could say, okay, you're going to shift this piece and shift this
Okay.
piece. But
In that case, did I tell you about the game idea I had for this game?
go for it.
Okay, so it would start as a puzzle game. You have to assemble Frankenstein's monster. And then there would be the stage where you have to move your mouse in a circle to get it up to on top of the roof through the chains. And then from there, it would be like a telltale story game where you would play as Frankenstein's monster.
So you
And
had
your
to
choices
assemble your character before you could play as the character?
Yes.
So who are you playing as before you assemble your character?
Either Igor or Dr. Frankenstein.
Cool. That kind of, I feel like that's been done, and I'm trying to remember where I might have, like, I feel like there's a game where I was collecting body parts to create something, but I don't know that I played. There's been hundreds of games, like I couldn't tell you what it was, but I'm gonna have to figure that out, and if I can remember what it is, I will let you know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Like I want to open up Photoshop, but I'm scared it's gonna.
We're afraid. We don't.
Yeah.
Maybe do MS Paint then.
No, I don't even know that it's MS Paint. I think I'm literally getting a marker, or I'll start with a pencil, and I'm gonna draw this darn monkey.
I blame Oasis.
Oasis?
That's just been the librarian thing all week. Just we blame Oasis for everything now.
Oh, there
Really?
you go.
Is that
There
your
you
y'all's
go.
new system?
It's the software system that ProQuest uses for ordering books, and we've been having
okay.
many issues with it.
Awesome.
So trying to keep it really, and actually, I'll be honest, I'm way faster doing it the old way than I was on the computer anyway. But I'm thinking crotchety old man monkey, like, get off my lawn. Like, I don't know if you guys can see that, but like reclining, kind of pissy, wants all of the other monkeys to get away unless they have bananas. That's kind of where I'm going with that. So I will say that when you're doing character design, it's super important to look up examples. So if I had a much longer window of time, I'd be looking up pictures of monkeys and figuring out what kind of monkey I want it to look like. Yes, Michael.
I just realized this character design reminds me of an already existing character.
Oh, does it? Who?
Cranky Kong of the Donkey Kong Country series.
There you
true.
go. There you go. Now, I never got in, like, I know Donkey Kong's like acclaimed. I never got into Donkey Kong. I don't know why. It was
Donkey
never...
Kong Country was the first video game I ever played.
Okay, so that's why it's present in the forefront of your mind. So I know monkeys, because they, can swing their bodies through trees, monkeys are very, like, they're not muscular in the sense that you think of like a gorilla, but all monkeys, even like the really
They
lanky
have
ones,
a
are
lot more muscles than the
super-
human body, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, they are lean, mean animals. So I
I
don't want to
wouldn't call
make
the
this monkey
orangutan
overly
lean.
ripped, but say that again.
I wouldn't call an orangutan or a gorilla lean.
Well, if they can like hoist themselves from their fingertips up to a tree, like I don't
They're
know,
definitely
I
me.
can't do a pull up like that. So
I can't do a pull up at all.
I feel as though even if they aren't muscled in like the classic sense that we think of, they are still muscular animals. So I don't want to like give this monkey bulging biceps,
Yeah, no.
but I am trying to, I do want to give him a big round like beer belly. I'm going to really emphasize he loves him some nanners. So I'm just trying, I'm not going to get into too much detail as far as like fingers and toes and stuff are concerned, but I'm just looking to flesh out a little more information. I'm going to give him biggish ears. I'm going to give him kind of a masculine chin, because I really want to emphasize that big brow. Like he's mad. He's like, "Roar." All right, so I've gone into a little bit more detail. He's got the same hairline as my husband, so I'm trying not to make it overly overly reminiscent of my spouse. But I'm gonna go in with like a Sharpie now and just kind of, he's like, he's get off my lawn. Does not want the young monkeys to mess with his nap time. I'm going to give him a cleft chin because that makes me laugh. I'll be honest, character development is like a fun exercise in like being able to communicate. Make sure you're still there. Okay, I could see myself moving on the screen. You guys are so quiet. But character creation is like a fun exercise in being able to communicate emotion without, being verbal. Like it's kind of like playing Pictionary. I miss having face-to-face class because I would make playing Pictionary a part of some of my classes at the end of the semester.
I think there's a website where you can do that.
I bet you there is. I'm not going to take the time to find it right this second, but
I can if you want.
no, it's okay. I'm almost out of time. I just want to have some sort of character created, since that had been my plan all along for this session, and I'm disappointed my computer's being a butt. Maybe it also knows that it's Friday, so
It's true. It's trying to shut you down.
actually I'm gonna go off of some monkeys have like a beard. Like I'm thinking of like a lion tamarind has like a crown, but I'm gonna go with like his little bald head, so it looks like he's got premature hair loss.
He's giving me, I know you said you were modeling him after your husband a
No,
little
no, no,
bit.
no, no,
but
no, no, no,
he's-
no, no, no. I'm saying I'm trying not
Just the
to model it
hairline.
off.
He's giving me real, whenever you talked about crotchety old monkey, get off my lawn, I was getting real Charlton Heston vibes. So. Gran Torino monkey.
That's hilarious.
I'm thinking of the old man from a cartoon called Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Here we go. Oh my God.
That is a wonderful design.
Oh, gross. I
It
love it.
5
But it-
minutes. 5 minutes.
But I love it because it really,
Catherine, I apologize.
he's like, oh geez, Catherine will never be the same again. But it's cool. It kind of, it goes with what you were talking about earlier, where it's like you're able to create kind of this attitude, right?
Yeah,
Of the
like-
character, like he looks annoyed, and then like kind of the shape of his body is like a little bit more bulbous, so we know that he's not like athletic or any. Oh my God, that just gets more and more disturbing every time I look at it. Sign it and sell it.
It kind of looks like he's about to use that banana as a boomerang.
Yeah, exactly. No, but that just goes to show that you could sketch something, like if you're able to develop your drawing skills, you can sketch something really quickly. It's not about, having a fully formed character in your head. It's just sketching the attitude of the character.
Yeah, and this early in the game, like it's not going to be perfect. Like this is, I think, what I want to stress, especially if you're artistically inclined, nothing ever comes out exactly the way that you want it to the first time. You know, writers do not write, their masterpiece in one take.
What?
And I think that that's what's important to remember as like a creative person. You might have an amazing idea, but until we can invent something that prints what's in your brain, like you can't expect it to come out perfect the first time.